I'm just saying, it's not like Matt Murray's going to come in here and
if I was the organization,
Ilya Shesterkin.
I mean, Strutt, you probably agree with me because Hayes is out to lunch. You'd rather have like the experienced goalie beside the other goalie who's barely played in the NHL, no, for like a month, maybe 6 weeks. I mean, maybe we'll see what happens with the injuries. Those guys, but no.
All right, Strutt, go ahead.
No, this is my thing. I do think that health is a big skill. Right, and there's some people. Once you get injured, you just start. It just perpetually seems to go off, and we've seen it with Demko in Vancouver. Other netminders, even players, where just the injuries start happening. And I for one always valued guys that could play. I'm not talking about blocking a shot and breaking your hand. I'm talking about groins, hip flexors, all those types of things that they're continually out and have injuries. So I understand what they're trying to do, but is there a future with Murray for the Leafs more so than
no? Of course not. I mean, you know that definitively, Jonas. Like, who has more of a future with this team, Matt Murray or Dennis Hildeby? Dennis Hildeby, of course.
But for this season, maybe it's Murray.
And the reasoning may be we want Hildeby to play, so we want him to get back to the Marlies so we can get some.
He's
starts.
not had like the best year with the Marlies, so
right. And Murray's been hurt for a big chunk of the year as well. So there's nothing to go on in terms of his history. I'm surprised you're such a Matt Murray booster.
I just look at the alternative, and if I was them, I would be more comfortable having Matt Murray than I would be Hildeby.
I wouldn't. I mean, I'm saying that definitively. I would
just because of the injuries, or just because
in large part, like the whole mojo of the injuries and the history, and you've got Joseph Woll, who the biggest pillar he has to overcome is injuries and being concerned about injuries. And I'm sorry. That's what Matt Murray represents. Not two-time Cup winner anymore. It's more the guy's he's always seems to be hurt, including last year where he had a really significant injury to the point where he had a significant surgery in rehab, and now he's going to be playing games for the Leafs. I would have stuck with Hildeby. They've decided to go with Murray. I do. It's not going to be the end of the world because when Stolarz returns, he's going to play, clearly. But
it's not an insignificant chunk of time.
It's a large chunk of time. And listen, if Murray comes up, doesn't play well, they can send him down, and Hildeby's going to come up. We're talking about the backup goalie here. We're talking about the third and fourth stringers. It's not a make or break conversation. I don't quite understand why he has to come up now and Hildeby has to go down.
That's why they signed him, to be their 3.
Well, what? Yeah, I don't care. I don't want to get into a whole third and fourth goalie conversation in the first block. It doesn't really matter enough. It doesn't matter enough. No. It's an insignificant conversation. Matter. It could, and again, the Leafs will have to figure that out and play their way through it. And if he doesn't play well, or if he gets hurt again, then they're possibly in a bind. Yet, again, if he gets hurt, Hildeby comes up, Stolarz will return at some point. Anyway, that top line, we discussed that a lot. I guess they played okay last night. What'd you make of Matthews and Marner and Nylander? Did you see it, Strutt? I mean, there was the richest line in the history of the NHL was put together last night. And that's a fact. Those guys are making like $35 million cash, each of them combined. So where do we stand on that?
So this is what I think. When you put 3 players that good together, unfortunately, there's only one puck out there. And I would like them all to have the puck more often on their stick if possible. And I'm not suggesting any one of them's a puck hog or anything like that, but I think I'd rather have them on different lines so there's more opportunity for those guys to spend more time with the puck on their stick. And rather than maybe watching someone else or trying to get open. So I don't really know. Maybe Craig's just trying to shake it up, but I just think you want to have guys, I think spreading them out gives them a chance to have the puck, Jonas, more often on their individual stick. I don't want Marner just forechecking or just watching the other two, or vice versa with Nylander and the big guy, Matthews.
I mean, there's like 100% validity to that. It's a great point. That's why it's barely happened. Like, it's happened like a handful of times. Maybe not even a handful of times. I think it's like 2 games before last night. And yet, and I think that's right. Like, it looked a little weird. Like, Marner didn't have the puck as much as
I found that
would.
Marner was the third, the odd man out of the 3,
which is not ideal because he's obviously great with the puck. But why can't they just see it for a little bit? Like, why not? Like, what? I don't know.
Why not put Matt Murray at center tomorrow night?
Look at you.
But what does that mean? Like,
I just don't give it. Why not? Like, what? Let's just see. Give it 5 games. Give it 3 games. Like, what is the downside? We know the other stuff. We've seen the other stuff. Like, thousands of times.
Yeah, go ahead, Strutt.
Would you want this line to start the first round of the playoffs?
No.
Is this something you think would work in the playoffs?
I don't know. I mean, we've barely seen it. Probably not for the reasons you're talking about. But maybe it's something
work as a group.
Yeah, but like maybe it's something.
Would you want to work for the team?
Would I want it to work for the team? Like,
is this something you think you'd want? It's important for the team to have those three guys on one line in the playoffs, or would you rather see them spread out?
I think it's a conceivable option that they could go to in a playoff series, which they never have. Like maybe you give it some run, like I'm talking about, and it's like that some chemistry develops, and let's say it's game 2, and it's like, man, they haven't scored at all in this series. Let's go to that, and instead of it being like, oh, they played together one shift. It's like they've actually played together a bit. They have a little bit of familiarity at 5-on-5.
These guys have been teammates for 9 years.
They barely ever played 5-on-5.
I understand that, but if they don't know the P's and Q's of each other's games,
5-on-5 is not power play.
Yeah. You know, Jonas, that's a well thought out response.
I
agree with you because, and I challenged you and you answered. This is what I'm saying. You're talking about a nuclear option like McDavid and Draisaitl when they put them together. And I'm glad you got there. Hayes wasn't close. Hayes is still seeing if his hair's dark enough. You nailed it. So I guess if you want to put that together every now and then, and you're right, it has to be more than, 2 seconds, put together, make sure it can work, and then you want to change a series, then by all means, yes. But I still think any team is better when you spread out that many people because I want them having the puck on their stick as much as possible. But I totally understand and agree with you. Jonas, you're on fire today.
There you go,
absolutely on fire.
Start. Great
and what do you say to this? Now, Hayes disagreed with this the other day, but I think he's probably right. But like other teams have done this. This is not like something you can't do. Landeskog, McKinnon, Rantanen, you mentioned McDavid and Draisaitl play together all the time. Marchand, Bergeron, Pasternak.
But what was my reasoning?
Your
why
reasoning
this is different?
Sound, very sound.
It's because those
their
players
skill sets are too overlapping.
They have completely different ingredients.
Okay,
like Gabriel Landeskog, none of these 3 Leafs play anything like him. Not even close to the way he plays. Brad Marchand, who is the Brad Marchand on this line? Like nobody it plays like him, and that's the point. Is the 3 of them are all like uber skilled.
They have tried
checking players.
We've seen them do it the other way. Playoff.
Yeah.
They don't score. Maybe
it might be
find
worth
something
it at that
that's
point.
like, let's go to this in the middle of a series. It works. I mean, another example from the not so distant past, Kane and Taves. That was like their breaking case of emergency option. I don't know.
Yeah, no. Listen, I understand that, but that again, I can give you countless examples of 2 players playing together. And doing that,
like
the nuclear, exactly. They play all the time together.
Yeah, I know.
Like the nuclear option is Draisaitl with McDavid.
Yes.
It's not a third guy that's included in that.
Well, Hyman.
Yes, but Hyman has a very set role though. Like again, it's a very defined role. He's not saying, Connor, I will drive play. You go to the corner. Right. Like there's role definition there. With these 3, there's not. Like none of them are crashers or bangers. None of them live around the net. None of them, are looking to be F1 on a forecheck. They don't live in that world. They never have.
So they like to have the puck on their stick.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess it's like
I'm very intrigued by it. I found it entertaining last night. I found it interesting that Willie scored 2. Now he's up to 20. Both of the goals were great plays by Matthews and Tavares, like to put him, in a position to score. The last one was an empty netter, but brilliant play by Tavares. Effort play, makes the play. Matthews draws in both defenders and sauces one to him, and he goes shelve. Like those are showing the talents, I think, of Tavares and Matthews as much as it would with Nylander. But again, I thought the line was fine. I think over time you don't want the imbalance over the rest of the lineup. I think that's another thing we got to be careful with here. Good for Domi, McMahon, and Robertson. Awesome the last couple of games. I'll believe it when I see it 10 games from now.
Yeah, fair.
Right? They're not out of the doghouse. Domi, I think, will have a good second half, just like he did last year. Nick Robertson still has to continue to prove he's an NHL player. Like, he's got to keep proving that. And so, again, for the middle part of the season in December, throw a bone to the fan base. It's fun. It's cool. Go ahead. Play it this weekend. We'll see. But I think we all know what the answer is going to be. They're not going to do it over a 60-minute game in the playoffs. Could it be a nuclear option, like you said, a shift or 2? Sure. But Sheldon Keefe used to do that from time to time.
He did. What's the Jerry's percentage on them playing a playoff game together?
Like, we're talking every single shift.
Every single shift.
Like, they're up on the whiteboard, and that's how it's going to go. I think it's 0%.
Leafs facing center crisis amid injuries, eyeing trade market for solutions. As the Toronto Maple Leafs battle through a growing injury list and a suspension, their lack of depth at the center position has become a glaring issue. According to Sportsnet's Elliotte Friedman in his latest 32 Thoughts article, the Leafs are among the teams exploring trade options to bolster their lineup. This effort is coming amid increasing competition from teams like the Chicago Blackhawks and Nashville Predators, who have also set their sights on improving their center depth. Friedman didn't mince words about the Leafs' predicament. The teams currently focusing on centers, including Chicago and Nashville, must consider when others will enter the market. Toronto will undoubtedly be one of those teams, he wrote. While the Blackhawks and Predators may have an edge in terms of cap space and assets, the Leafs remain a team to watch as the season progresses. The Leafs situation is urgent, with up to 7 forwards currently unavailable due to injury or suspension. Ryan Reeves is serving a 5-game suspension, while key players like Auston Matthews, upper body, Matthew Knies, upper body, Kalle Jarnkrok, groin/sports hernia, David Kampf, lower body, Max Domi, lower body, and Max Pacioretty, lower body, are all sidelined. The team has even considered temporarily shifting Mitch Marner to the center position, highlighting the severity of their depth issues. This isn't just a short-term concern for the Leafs. Depth at center has been a persistent challenge for the team, and while stopgap solutions like Marner could help in the interim, the front office appears keen to explore longer-term fixes. For fans of the blue and white, this has been a recurring theme. The Leafs' center depth often becomes a problem at the worst possible times. James Myrtle of The Athletic recently added more fuel to the speculation, naming several potential trade targets who could help the Leafs address their issues. Among them is Ryan O'Reilly, a familiar name for Toronto fans. O'Reilly, who signed a 4-year, $18 million deal with Nashville in 2023, might be a trade candidate if the Predators' underwhelming start to the season, 6-11-3, 31st in the league, prompts a rebuild. However, his steep price tag and history with the Leafs, including rejecting a free agency offer less than 2 years ago, make this a complex and potentially unlikely move. Other names mentioned by Myrtle include former Leaf Nazem Kadri, currently with Calgary, as well as players like Michael Granlund, Nick Jugstad, Brock Nelson, Yanni Gourde, Trent Frederic, Radek Faksa, and Sean Kuraly. While some of these options seem more plausible than others, it's clear that general manager Brad Treliving will need to get creative to find the right piece without mortgaging the team's future. Cap space remains one of the biggest obstacles for the Leafs. Unlike teams like Chicago and Nashville, which have more flexibility and assets, Toronto is walking a financial tightrope. As Friedman noted, competition will intensify as cap-constrained teams strive to create room. For the Leafs, that could mean waiting for the market to develop further, a risky move given their current needs. The situation also highlights the Leafs' ongoing struggle to build a roster that can withstand the grueling nature of an NHL season. Injuries are an inevitability in hockey, but Toronto's current predicament underscores the importance of depth, a quality the team has struggled to consistently maintain. Looking back on recent years, the Leafs have often leaned heavily on their star players, particularly Matthews, Marner, and William Nylander. While these players have delivered in spades, the lack of reliable depth options has left the team vulnerable in critical moments. The current crisis at center is merely the latest example of this recurring issue. Some fans have called for more aggressive moves from Treliving, arguing that now is the time to strike while the team's core is in its prime. Others, however, are more cautious, pointing to the dangers of overpaying for short-term fixes. Striking the right balance will be key, especially as the Leafs aim to keep their championship window open. Despite the challenges, there's no denying that Toronto has the talent to be a contender, provided they can patch up their lineup. The ongoing rumors and speculation surrounding potential trades show that the Leafs are at least exploring every avenue to strengthen their roster. For fans of the blue and white, this moment feels like a pivotal point in the season. With a lineup ravaged by injuries and a tough schedule ahead, the Leafs must act decisively to avoid falling behind in the standings. The addition of a dependable center could be the difference between weathering the storm or watching another season slip away. Whether it's O'Reilly, Kadri, or another surprise name, one thing is certain: the Leafs are under pressure to deliver. And for a fan base as passionate and loyal as Toronto's, there's no room for excuses. The time to act is now, and Leafs Nation is watching closely. As the trade deadline approaches, the stakes couldn't be higher. Will Treliving pull off a move that solidifies the Leafs' status as a contender, or will the search for center depth become yet another chapter in the team's long history of what-ifs? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure, it's never boring in Leafs land. As the Maple Leafs navigate this critical juncture, their fan base remains as vocal as ever. Toronto is a city that breathes hockey, and the pressure on Brad Treliving to make the right moves is immense. Every decision he makes or doesn't make will be scrutinized, from talk radio to social media, where Leafs Nation is already debating the merits of the various names being floated as potential trade targets. Among the louder debates is whether the team should prioritize a high-profile acquisition like Ryan O'Reilly or Nazem Kadri, or focus on a lower-cost, reliable center who can fill a supporting role without costing too many future assets. While O'Reilly's leadership and playoff experience make him an attractive option, his contract and recent history with the Leafs add layers of complexity to any potential reunion. Similarly, Kadri's gritty, two-way playstyle remains a fan favorite, but his cap hit and availability might render him an unrealistic target. Another factor complicating the Leafs situation is their tight salary cap. While Chicago and Nashville can make moves with relative ease due to their financial flexibility, Toronto must navigate a labyrinth of constraints to make any trade work. This likely means including salary retention or moving existing contracts to make room, which could drive up the cost of any potential deal. The question then becomes, how much are the Leafs willing to sacrifice to address their immediate needs? One potential trade partner generating buzz is the Seattle Kraken. Yanni Gourde, a dependable two-way center, has been mentioned as a possible target. Gourde's versatility and championship pedigree from his time with Tampa Bay make him an appealing option. Seattle, however, is in playoff contention and may not be inclined to part with a key piece unless the Leafs can provide a substantial return. Another intriguing name is Brock Nelson of the New York Islanders. Nelson is a consistent scorer and reliable faceoff-man, qualities that would undoubtedly bolster Toronto's center depth. However, the Islanders are notoriously cautious when it comes to trades, and prying Nelson away would likely require a significant package, including picks or prospects that the Leafs may be hesitant to part with. For all the trade talk, some analysts believe the solution might come from within. Sheldon Keefe has shown a willingness to experiment with his lineup, and players like Pontus Holmberg or Fraser Minton could be given an opportunity to step up. While relying on less experienced players carries risks, it might be the Leafs' only option if the trade market proves too costly or slow to develop. Adding to the Leafs' urgency is the timing. The Atlantic Division remains one of the toughest in the league, with teams like Boston, Florida, and Tampa Bay continuing to dominate. Any prolonged slump could see Toronto slip further down the standings, putting their playoff hopes in jeopardy. For a team with Stanley Cup aspirations, failing to address their weaknesses could have catastrophic consequences. Brad Treliving's history as a general manager suggests he's not afraid to make bold moves. His time with the Calgary Flames was marked by blockbuster trades, including the acquisition of Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar in the Matthew Tkachuk deal. Leafs fans hope he brings that same decisiveness to Toronto, especially as the trade deadline looms. Beyond the immediate need for a center, this situation underscores a broader issue with the Leafs roster construction. Depth has been a perennial concern, and while Toronto boasts some of the league's top-end talent, their reliance on a handful of stars has left them vulnerable in moments like this. Moving forward, addressing this imbalance must be a priority for the front office if the team is to achieve sustained success. As the Leafs head into a critical stretch of the season, the next few weeks could define their trajectory.